There is something deeply strange about human behavior. People often defend systems that make their lives worse. They justify institutions that exploit them. They protect structures that quietly drain their time, their autonomy, their dignity. And they do this not because they are ignorant, not because they are forced, but because psychologically, defending the system feels safer than questioning it. This is not a story about stupidity. It is a story about survival. To understand it, we need to look at one of the most uncomfortable mechanisms in the human mind: cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the tension that appears when two things conflict: what we believe and what we experience. When people invest years of their lives into a system, a job, an institution, a social order, admitting that the system is harmful creates unbearable tension. It would mean admitting that the sacrifice was meaningless, that the suffering was unnecessary, that obedience did not lead to safety, and the mind resists that conclusion at all costs. So instead of questioning the system, people adjust the story they tell themselves. This is just how things are. It's imperfect, but better than chaos. If I work harder, it will pay off. It's not the system, it's the people who fail within it. Rationalization becomes protection, because questioning the system does not just threaten comfort, it threatens identity. Most modern systems do not present themselves as oppressive. They present themselves as rational, necessary, inevitable. They use neutral language, processes, policies, protocols, and this creates an illusion. If something is formal, procedural, and normalized, it feels morally neutral. But harm does not disappear when it becomes organized. It just becomes harder to see. One of the most powerful tools systems use is normalization.
When harm happens slowly, repeatedly, and predictably, it fades into the background. It stops feeling like harm. It becomes routine. Long hours become professionalism. Burnout becomes ambition. Surveillance becomes security. Exclusion becomes standards. And once harm is normalized, defending it feels reasonable.
Another force at work is system justification, the psychological tendency to believe that existing systems are legitimate even when they disadvantage us. Why? Because believing the system is broken creates anxiety. Believing it is justified creates order. The human mind prefers a bad explanation over no explanation at all. If the system is unfair, then the world is unstable. If the system is flawed, then effort might not matter. If the system is unjust, then obedience was a mistake. That realization is terrifying. So the mind flips the logic. If I am struggling, it must be my fault. If others fail, they didn't try hard enough. If the system rewards some people, it must be fair. This is how victims become defenders. This is how exploitation disguises itself as merit. There is also the role of social belonging. Humans are wired to protect the groups they depend on. When identity becomes tied to a system, a company, a nation, an ideology, criticizing that system feels like self-betrayal. Dissent becomes disloyalty. Questions become threats. Silence becomes virtue. And so people police themselves and each other. They repeat the system's language. They defend its logic. They attack those who challenge it. Not because they are evil, but because exclusion feels worse than injustice. Another reason people defend harmful systems is learned helplessness. When individuals repeatedly experience that resistance changes nothing, the brain adapts.
it stops trying. Over time, compliance feels like realism. Hope feels naive, and cynicism feels intelligent. This is just how the world works. You can't change it. Everyone has to play the game. These phrases are not observations, they are psychological shields. They protect the individual from disappointment by lowering expectations. But there is a darker layer. When people benefit even slightly from a system, status, stability, identity, they become invested in its survival, even if the cost is paid by others, even if the harm eventually reaches them too. Because losing a flawed system feels worse than risking the unknown. And this is where moral language changes. People stop asking, "Is this right?" They start asking, "Is this normal?" Or worse, "Is this legal?" Morality is replaced by compliance. And once that shift happens, harm no longer feels like harm. It feels like policy. The most dangerous systems do not rely on force. They rely on participation. They do not demand belief. They reward conformity. They do not silence everyone. They let people speak as long as nothing changes. This is why people defend systems that harm them, because those systems offer something in return: structure, identity, predictability, belonging. And because confronting the truth would require a painful reckoning. It would require admitting that suffering was not necessary, that loyalty was misplaced, that silence caused damage. That realization threatens the self-image of being rational, moral, and competent. So the mind protects itself. It reframes harm as necessity, exploitation as opportunity, obedience as maturity. But systems do not need defenders who love them. They need defenders who cannot imagine life without them. And that is the final trap. When people defend a system, they are often not defending power. They are defending their past choices. They are defending the meaning they assign to their sacrifices. Understanding this does not mean blaming individuals. It means recognizing how deeply psychological these mechanisms are. Awareness is the only interruption. Because the moment someone asks, "What if this system does not deserve my defense?" the spell weakens. And when the system is no longer protected by belief, it must survive on something else. That is why systems invest so heavily in narratives, why they reward loyalty, why they punish doubt. Because the most effective control is not fear, it is justification. And the moment justification collapses, participation becomes a choice again. That moment is rare, quiet, uncomfortable, but it is the beginning of freedom.